What's up, everyone? Marc Lobliner, TigerFitness.com with Stephen Adele, the CEO of ISatori, here to talk about, he's been labeled the king of bro science. How you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So, bro science. First of all, that's a new term. I don't think that existed when we first started working together like 13 years ago.
No, I don't think so.
What do you have to say about bro science, and are you honored by this title?
Actually, I take offense to that title, bro science. I know that's been a new term thrown around recently. I'd like to distinguish myself from what I consider bro science. First of all, I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor. I don't spend my life in the lab, though I do work with quite a few very brilliant scientists. I mean, you know many of them, Darren Willoughby, Jeff Stout, Jay Hoffman. These guys are world-renowned, researchers in the areas of sports nutrition. I've really learned a lot from these guys over the years, actually dating back from metrics and EAS and starting ISatori. But I will tell you, when I think of bro science, what I think of are some of the kind of dirty little tricks that get played in our industry. And one of the most common ones is really taking ingredient X, Y, and Z that has scientific studies on it, and then putting them together, putting them in your product with just a little bit of pixie dust, not using the scientific dosage, but yet referencing those studies. And that's pseudoscience or bro science, whatever you want to call it. You're borrowing other people's science, suggesting that your product does X, Y, or Z because it has those ingredients, even though the ingredients aren't at efficacious dosage. That to me is bro science. Also the fact that if you look at a lot of companies that list scientific studies or use their claims being validated by those studies, they're usually, if you look at the studies closely, you look at the abstracts, read the study, they're probably using what's called an outlier in the study. They're taking that one subject who gained 8 pounds of muscle or lost 30 pounds of fat, and then they're basing their claim on that. Well, that's an outlier. That's not typical. Basically, you're looking at a scientific study, you should take the average. What was the mean? What was the average weight loss or muscle gain? The effect of that product is best represented by that average. To me, those companies that use the outliers or reference those studies using the outlier, that's bro science. The other thing too, and you and I were laughing about this, you can go on a popular website, look at the top 10 supplements, and I guarantee you that hardly maybe one or two of them at best may have an actual clinical study done on their product. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on at ISatori, and I've done since the very beginning, is instead of talking about science, we actually do science. We actually invest in, you know how expensive clinical studies are. But that shows the product is safe and effective. And sometimes, yes, it's in arrears of a product and it comes up behind and validates that product. It takes a while sometimes for the science to catch up to things that we already know. But I think at the end of the day, by investing in that clinical study and that science to support the product, that in my mind is very far from bro science. That's an actual investment in a clinical study that suggests the product is safe and it's effective. So I take offense to being considered a bro scientist. My job in essence is to take the science that does exist and to use the literature that's out there and to talk to the scientists who are in the lab and take what they know and interpret it so we can understand it and so we can apply it. And that is not a bro scientist. If that's what I'm going to be labeled, then certainly do take offense to that. But I don't think that's where I should be classified. But again, I'm not a scientist by any means, and I don't actually try to play myself off as a scientist. I don't put a lab on. I don't put a fake PhD after my name, but we know plenty of people out there who do that.
Definitely. I mean, the thing is that, I've actually been called the same, bro, mainly due to my eating, not mainly, but I mean, with even the branch chain thing. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is and funded a study. You guys don't realize how expensive that is. Well, why don't everybody, okay, here's why they don't study things. It's expensive, and it was funded by ISatori, so it had to be. If ISatori didn't fund their own study, who would fund it? The government's too busy finding cures for, I don't know, things like cancer and AIDS. They're not too worried about muscle growth in young, healthy males. So if we didn't fund the study, who would fund it? Nobody. We have to fund the study. So there's always going to be that conflict, but that's why we use reputable people to carry out the studies, like your Darren Willoughby's. Like, you know, with me, I used the Weeder Institute, well, at the time, it was and the College of Charleston. I mean, those were who we used. So, I mean, we used two groups, where he's using reputable scientists, and they're not going to jeopardize the years of education and their reputation to show that bioactive peptides work. Their career is much bigger than one supplement study. They're not getting paid that much for these studies. A lot of the cost is just to cover their overhead to run the study.
Yeah. And something else that I recommend anybody do is the next time you're considering a supplement, I encourage you to call that company and ask them for a clinical study or the abstract of the study that was performed on the actual product itself. Not all the ingredient studies, but on the product itself. I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, you'll hear crickets on the other line.
Yeah.
Or that there's a study coming and it might be, you know, from now till infinity before you ever hear if it actually makes it to the market, because the chances are they're not funding a study.
Yeah.
But more than likely you'll hear crickets because they don't actually have a study that's conducted on the actual product itself.
Yeah, and that's something that we've both been a part of. So, you know, while there are some things that, as old school bodybuilders, you know, I still like dieting with my friggin' sweet potatoes and chicken. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about supplements and what works, we're as non-bro scientists as you come if you think about it. So, did you pretty much address what you wanted to?
I think so. I think that covers it.
That's good, man. Well, we appreciate you. Again, this is just to clarify. I think the word bro scientist has been completely misused in a lot of cases. I mean, and this is just one of them. So, yeah, just look for the research. And again, with BioGrow, you got a bunch of studies coming out, right?
Yep, they'll be out very shortly. As soon as we get the data presented at a scientific conference, we'll make sure that everybody knows and gets to see the data, and we'll be looking to have them published in a peer-reviewed journal.
It'll be right here. And thanks again for being here, man.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
It's not a game.